Have you ever wondered why some people don't try to get attention at all, yet everyone wants to be around them? They don't talk too much. They don't show off. They're not trying to please anyone. And still, they're admired, respected, and quietly sought after. Meanwhile, there are others who try their hardest, give so much of themselves, and yet no one seems to truly care. Maybe you felt that way too. You've given a lot your time, your energy, your love, but still feel lonely, still feel like you're chasing after someone's attention. You speak, you show up, you try to prove your worth. But the more effort you make, the more silence you receive. And at some point you start to wonder, is it because I'm not good enough? Or am I doing something wrong? And then something strange happens. The moment you let go when you stop begging for recognition. When you turn inward, tending to your own mind, your energy, your stillness, and your inner wisdom, that's when people begin to look at you differently. Not as someone who needs them, but as someone they want to be around. That's not luck. That's the quiet power of presence, of grounded strength, of a mind that no longer clings. So, how do you cultivate that kind of presence? How do you stop asking for love and still become someone who's deeply valued in others' lives? In Buddhist teachings, and especially in the wisdom of Zen, there are timeless principles. Simple, not flashy, but if practiced sincerely, they allow you to shine from within, with peace, without needing to chase attention from the outside world. So today, we begin this journey, a path filled with deep insight, told through the story of a silent monk and a merchant desperate to be seen. Have you ever noticed? A river never asks the mountain, "Which way should I flow?" Yet it winds, bends, crashes through rocks, and still makes it to the ocean. The sun doesn't beg the sky to hold it. And yet, every single morning, it rises without fail. A tree never pleads with the birds to stay, but they still come. They nest, they sing, they rest in its branches. And you might ask, how does all of this happen so effortlessly? No forcing, no clinging, no need to do something special. And then you realize when something lives in harmony with its true nature, it becomes whole. And that wholeness is what others are drawn to. In life, especially as we grow older and carry more stories on our shoulders, it's easy to feel unacknowledged, even forgotten. You've sacrificed. You've cared. You've shown up for others. But sometimes, you still feel unseen. Maybe even in your own family, in your work, in the relationships that matter most. But imagine this. What if a river gave up just because no one showed it the way? Would it ever meet the ocean? What if the sun stopped rising just because no one was waiting for it? Would the morning ever return? The Buddha once taught, one who lives with mindfulness becomes a light unto themselves. Not because someone else shines that light on them, but because they've learned to shine it from within. And that is where we begin. And sometimes, it's exactly when you stop chasing people that they begin to find their way back to you. Not because you changed to please them, but because you finally return to who you truly are. Like a river that simply flows, a sun that knows how to shine, a tree that stands tall in silence, still warm enough for birds to come home to. There's a story often told in Zen circles, and each time it's shared, it has a way of settling the heart just a little deeper. It's the story of a wealthy merchant and a silent monk who never spoke a single word. This merchant had everything most people dream of: gold, power, influence. Wherever he went, his name was known. And yet, the more he had, the lonelier he felt. His parties were always full. But when he stopped giving gifts, when the favors ended, people quietly disappeared. Friends, business partners, even family, they only seemed to show up when they needed something from him. Have you ever felt that way? That you've given so much only to feel unseen? That the harder you try to hold on to relationships, the more they slip through your hands? In that place of uncertainty, the merchant heard whispers of a monk who lived high in the mountains. This monk didn't preach. He didn't argue. He didn't say a word. And yet, kings, artists, scholars, and everyday people all climbed the steep paths just to sit in his presence. Curious and perhaps desperate, the merchant set aside his business and made the long journey up the mountain, hoping to uncover the secret. How could someone be loved and respected without ever asking for it? When he arrived, he found the monk seated peacefully beneath an ancient tree. The silence was so deep, the merchant could hear the breeze dancing through the leaves. He stepped forward and asked, "Why is it that I must try so hard to earn people's attention while you, having nothing, are sought after by all?" The monk didn't answer. He simply stood up, walked over to a nearby stream, and gently scooped up a small bowl of water. He placed the bowl in front of the merchant, then quietly returned to his meditation. At first, the merchant was confused. A bowl of water? What could that possibly mean? But then, he sat still and began to notice. The water didn't ask for anything. It wasn't wine or honey. It didn't perform. And yet, it was clear, cool, still, reflecting the sky above. Birds came to drink. A soft breeze touched its surface. Then everything returned to stillness. That bowl of water was the teaching. No words, no explanation. Just a simple reminder. When you return to your true, quiet nature, when you stop forcing, stop performing, your presence becomes enough. In life, we often believe we have to do more to be loved, to be seen. But like that bowl of water, it's when we stop trying so hard, when we release the need to be noticed, that our inner stillness can finally surface. And in that stillness, others can see something rare, something real, something they want to stay close to. The monk gave the merchant no advice, only a reflection. And from that moment on, the merchant began learning his first real lessons. From silence itself. 1. Grateful for yourself. Pause and see that you are already enough. Have you ever sat quietly in a calm afternoon and asked yourself, where does my worth really come from? Not from your job, not from how others see you, not from how many people remember your name, but from something much deeper than all of that. There was once a conversation I had with an older Buddhist practitioner, a woman in her late 60s. She asked a question that stayed with me for a long time. She said, "I've lived a life devoted to my family, to those I love. But now, in this stage of life, I'm not sure if I still matter to anyone." And I knew she wasn't alone. That quiet question echoes in the hearts of so many, especially those who've given so much, only to look back and wonder, do I still have value in anyone's eyes? But let's imagine this together. If a flower needed someone's applause to bloom, would it still be a flower? If the moon only rose when someone praised it, would the night still be beautiful? The Buddha once said, "Be an island unto yourself." And in that teaching, there's no loneliness, only an invitation. An invitation to return to the fullness that has always been within you. Being grateful for yourself means looking back at every storm you've weathered, every sacrifice you made, every sleepless night you endured. And instead of judging yourself for not being perfect, you simply smile and say, "Thank you, I'm still walking forward." I once met an elderly woman nearly 70 years old who lived alone in a modest little home. She didn't have social media, no likes, no comments. But each morning, she brewed tea, tended to her flowers, and chanted quietly in peace. I asked her, "Do you ever feel lonely?" She replied with a soft smile, "No, my dear. I have myself, and that's enough." You see, when we learn to be truly grateful for ourselves, with both our flaws and our quiet beauty, we no longer need to wait for someone else to validate us. That calm energy, that inner peace, that's what draws others to us. Not because they pity us, but because they can feel a stillness they themselves are craving in a noisy world. Gratitude for yourself isn't arrogance. It's when you pause, take a deep breath, and realize you've walked a long, meaningful journey, and you're still going with a heart that still carries warmth and hope. And here's the most beautiful part. When you truly know how to be grateful for yourself, you no longer need a place in anyone's heart, because you've already become the place where your own heart can rest. 2. Be the light, not the one who chases it. Have you ever felt this way? You try so hard to be loved, to be seen, to be appreciated, but somehow it still feels like you're invisible in the middle of life. The more you do to prove your worth to someone, the more distant they seem to become. And at some point, you begin to wonder, maybe I've been doing it wrong all along? Now imagine this, a quiet lamp glowing in the darkness. It doesn't call out. It doesn't shout, "Hey, I'm over here." And yet, anyone lost in the dark will naturally walk toward that light, not because the lamp called to them, but because the light is exactly what they needed. In the Buddhist teachings, there's a clear difference between seeking and being. Those who chase love often become trapped in the emotions of others. Their happiness rises and falls depending on who notices them. But the one who is love, who lives with compassion and understanding, doesn't need to be loved in return to feel whole. They don't ask. They don't beg. They simply live truthfully, and that is enough. I remember a story from my time at the monastery. There was a young novice monk, still new to the path. Every day, he worked tirelessly, sweeping the yard, heating water, cleaning the hall, all hoping the abbot would notice and praise him. But the more he tried, the more exhausted and discouraged he became. One day, the abbot gently said, "Do everything as if no one is watching, because when you learn to shine from within, that light will go further than any compliment ever could." That inner light, it's not something you have to force. It's already within you. Only, it's been covered by layers of comparison, expectations, and the need to be seen. But when you stop being someone who needs love to feel complete and start growing love within yourself, something shifts. You no longer have to search for connection. People will start coming to you not because you ask, but because your quiet presence invites them. The Buddha once said, "One who lights themselves from within is never left in darkness." That doesn't mean you have to be perfect or extraordinary. It just means living with sincerity, doing the kind thing even when no one's watching, and keeping your heart soft even when the world is hard. Some lights don't explode like fireworks. They burn quietly, gently, but just warm enough for someone out there in the cold of night to find their way back. And maybe that's the kind of light people cherish most. Not the one that demands to be seen, but the one that simply is. Not someone begging for love, but someone who has become love itself. 3. Practicing mindfulness daily. The first step toward deep transformation. Have you ever had one of those days when your body is still, but your mind is racing all over the place? You're sitting in your living room, but your thoughts are already worrying about tomorrow's meals, replaying something someone said yesterday, or caught in the regrets of a distant past. And then day after day, you realize you've been living without ever truly being present in your own life. In today's busy world, especially as we reach middle age and beyond, many people say they feel exhausted, not because they're doing too much, but because their mind never gets to rest. One man once told me, "My body is here, but my mind is always chasing something that hasn't even happened yet." And that's exactly what causes us to lose our inner calm, something every age needs, but something we deeply crave more and more as we get older. In the Buddhist teachings, there's a practice that's beautifully simple but profoundly life-changing. It's called mindfulness. And no, you don't need to climb a mountain or move into a monastery to find it. Mindfulness is when you drink a cup of tea and know you're drinking tea. It's when you wash the dishes without rushing to tomorrow, just quietly feeling the cool water in your hands. It's when you sit beside someone you love and you don't have to say a word because your full presence is already a gift. I once met an elderly man in California, almost 80 years old. He lived alone, no social media, no television, no noise. Every morning, he went into his small garden, sat under his persimmon tree, listened to the birds, and simply breathed. He didn't know much about Buddhist philosophy, but he lived deeply mindful. And the most remarkable thing, his children, neighbors, even old friends, they loved to sit beside him, not for advice, not for stories, just to sit in his presence. They would say, "Being near him makes my heart feel calm." Now imagine this. In a world full of noise, competition, and restlessness, someone who simply knows how to pause, to breathe, to live each moment fully, becomes the calmest energy in the room. That kind of peace doesn't come from a degree, or wealth, or status. It comes from quiet awareness, a silent knowing that you are already home, right here, right now. Mindfulness won't make you famous, but it will make you whole. It won't help you win life's race, but it will keep you from losing yourself along the way. And here's the magic. When you truly show up in your own life, moment by moment, you become a place of rest for those who are tired. You don't have to try to impress anyone. Just live deeply and truthfully with yourself, and others will find their way to you. Not because you tried to attract them, but because you're living in a way the world so desperately needs. Awake, present, and truly here. 4. Embodying self-sufficiency. The quiet strength that draws people in. There's a quiet paradox in life, one that many people only begin to understand after they've traveled through half of it. The tighter you hold on, the more things tend to slip away. But when you learn to loosen your grip gently, without fear, what's meant to stay often stays longer. You see, the more afraid you are of losing someone, the more likely you are to cling to them. You give more than you have. You sacrifice to the point of forgetting yourself, just to hold on to a relationship. But then they leave anyway. Or worse, they stay, but no longer truly value you. I've listened to many middle-aged practitioners share this pain. People who spent their whole lives caring for their spouse, their children, their family, only to reach a point where they feel hollow. Not because they weren't good enough, but because they placed all their worth in someone else's hands. And when those people changed, they felt lost. But in the Buddhist teachings, there's a quiet, powerful reminder. Be a light unto yourself. This doesn't mean to isolate or cut off love. It means to find your strength within so that love doesn't cost you your identity, so that no matter who comes or goes, you remain rooted. Imagine a tree standing in strong wind. A tree with shallow roots, leaning on others for support, can be uprooted by a single storm, but a tree with deep roots, steady, grounded, can stand through anything. People are just like that. When you're strong in your heart, when you no longer need to cling to others for happiness or approval, something shifts. You no longer need to beg for affection. And strangely, people begin to notice you more. I once met an older woman in New Jersey. Her husband had passed, and her children lived busy lives. Many assumed she must be lonely, but no, she meditated, gardened, read books, and nurtured herself each day. When I asked her, "Do you feel alone?" she smiled and said, "No, my dear. When you stop expecting others to make you happy, that's when joy starts growing from within." People with inner independence don't need to prove anything. They don't need applause. They don't need constant reassurance. Because they know true worth doesn't come from outside attention, it comes from inner stability. And here's the beautiful part. When you no longer depend on others to feel whole, they begin to feel drawn to you effortlessly. Not because you need them, but because around you, they feel lighter. They feel free because you're not demanding anything from them. The more you cling, the more people want to run. But when you let go, when you are quietly full, quietly steady, you become the place they want to return to. That's the power of inner self-sufficiency. It's a kind of presence that needs no spotlight, a quiet magnetism that never begs, but is never forgotten. 5. Mastering the art of presence. Have you ever had a conversation with someone and felt like they were truly there with you? Not glancing at their phone, not rushing to respond, not waiting for their turn to speak, just sitting, listening, understanding, not judging. And somehow, that quiet, genuine presence made you feel lighter, like you were touched by a rare sense of safety. In a world that's always rushing somewhere, in a society that pushes us to go faster, do more, and shine louder, someone who is fully present in the moment becomes more precious than gold. Imagine this: a room full of noise and movement, and in one quiet corner, a soft, steady light, not flickering, not calling attention to itself, just glowing. And without realizing it, people begin to drift toward that light. Not because it shouted, but because its calmness is exactly what they needed. In the Zen tradition, a person is not measured by their speeches, but by the quality of their presence. Do they walk mindfully, eat mindfully, speak and listen with awareness? Are they truly living, or just surviving in loops of worry and memory? I remember once giving a Dharma talk in a small temple in Northern California. Afterward, an older woman came up, took my hand, and said, "I don't remember everything you said, but when you looked at me without rushing, without looking past me, my heart felt calm." That's when I understood something deeply. People don't always need advice. Sometimes they just need someone to be fully there. You don't have to be a great speaker. You don't need to impress anyone. You don't have to be the center of attention. But if you can truly be present with each breath, with each look, with each gentle gesture, then you become a refuge for others. The Buddha said, mindfulness is the only path to awakening, and it doesn't require anything fancy. It's as simple as pouring a glass of water and knowing you're pouring it, listening without planning a response, eating with gratitude, aware of every bite, every grain of rice. The person who is fully present radiates a quiet strength. They don't need to prove themselves. They don't talk the loudest. but everyone around them can feel something rare, a peaceful energy. Not because they try to be special, but because they are truly present, and that, in today's busy world, is a rare and beautiful gift. And if you're wondering, how do I become someone whose presence is valued? The answer is simple. Start by valuing your own presence. Learn to be there for yourself. And then, others will come. Not because you call them, but because the quiet light within you has already begun to draw them near. And as you can see, when you learn to pause and listen to your own heart, when you release the need to chase and begin to live fully in each breath and each step, you start becoming the very light others are looking for. No need to beg for love, because you are love. No need to chase approval, because your inner steadiness makes you deeply worthy. And then, you no longer have to search. The world finds its way to you. This is what the Buddha has been teaching us all along. Return to yourself. Nourish your mind. Master your presence. Be grateful for who you are. Live with self-reliance and mindfulness every single day. These things don't make noise. They don't flash, but they create a lasting kind of presence. The kind people keep searching for in all the wrong places. You can start with something small, a few quiet moments each morning, listening deeply to a loved one without judgment, or simply sitting still with yourself. And this change, though subtle, will deepen your life, soften your days, and quietly touch the hearts of others. If this video has touched something in you, I invite you to subscribe to the Buddhism Seeds channel so we can continue walking together on this path of awareness and inner peace. Please like the video, share it with someone who might need it today, and feel free to leave a comment below, maybe one insight that stayed with you most. Thank you for being here, fully, sincerely, and completely present.